Hi everyone, it's Becky here. So a few days ago I started a brand new art journal and it's Etchr brand. So Etchr mailed me this sample of Sketchbook a couple weeks ago, and today I'm going to show you how I did this page in West Vancouver. So whether I'm indoors or traveling outdoors, I always use a very minimalistic art material. So I have my sketchbook, I have 2 drawing pens and 2 water brushes for painting watercolors, and 1 not so big watercolor palette, and 1 rag for cleaning the brushes. And today I'm taking you all to West Vancouver. I'm planning to go to a cafe by the beach. And here we are on the highway. It's a very rainy day. It's about an hour's drive from home. It's taking pretty long because we had some traffic on the highway. And here I am outside the cafe. It's called Crema. So no matter what the weather is, if we have love and passion about living, every day can be a great day, full of fun and possibilities. And now I'm getting ready to go in. It looks very spacious inside. And right now is only around 10:30, and so it's not too busy yet. And I ordered a cup of latte and 1 almond croissant with lots of almond chips on there. Very nice. So before I start eating, I'm going to do a quick sketch. It's going to take me about 10 to 15 minutes. I'm starting with the opening of the mug, which is an oval, and the body and the handle, which is kind of like a letter C the other way. And now I am drawing the little dish underneath, the rim of the dish, adding a little bit of accentuation. Now I'm drawing the bubbles around the edge of the coffee. And now drawing the little heart and the leaves of the floral. This is a pretty common design of latte art. And now just adding some final accentuation around the bottom of the little dish. Now I'm ready to draw this square dish where the croissant is on. So because it's not a square anymore, as we are looking at it from an angle, it's more a kind of a trapezoid shape. Now I'm drawing the outline of the croissant and also adding bits of almond around the edge near the outline. They're in different kinds of shapes, like water drops and squarish shapes. Every piece is different and it's very interesting. Again, we don't have to draw every single piece of almond or little detail that's on an object. Just drawing very quickly to summarize what we see and then add a little overlapping. If you miss a couple of pieces, that's okay. It still looks like the thing. And I'm also barely looking at the paper, so my lines are very continuous and spontaneous. And yeah, that's it for the line work. Now I'm ready to add watercolors, just to make these come alive. So first of all, I'm just wetting the areas first with a little bit of clear water by squeezing my water brush. And the first layer is always the lightest tone. Yellow, medium yellow mixed with a little bit of yellow ochre for both things. Especially for bakery stuff, the first layer very often is the yellow ochre color. Same for the coffee too. Now I'm adding the mix of ultramarine blue and pink purple and a little bit green to get my own gray for the shade color on the little dish and the mug, leaving little streaks of white highlight for the ceramic. That's pretty much it for the first layer. Second layer, wet on wet, mix of orange and a little bit of brown or burnt sienna for the coffee, leaving little spots to show the bubbles. And third layer, wet on wet, mix in even more brown or burnt sienna. Mix in a little bit of ultramarine blue into the brown to darken the edge of the coffee even more. and using pretty much the same color for the darker tone of the croissant on top of the first layer, kind of orange brown color, and for some dark shade parts, mixing a little bit blue into the brown to make the brown even more intense. Skipping around the almond chips because the almond chips are just brightly yellow, and another layer of shade, especially around the left side because the window is on the right hand side. Just mostly ultramarine blue and pink purple. Yeah, and use different kind of brush strokes to get the shapes of the shade. And around the inner part of the handle too, a little bit here and there. That's pretty much it for the coffee cup and dish. Now I'm just adding some more intense shade, which is very tiny bit on the little square dish. One last more intense shade on underneath the mug, and that's it. Here's the look of my finished sketch of my cup of latte and the croissant. It took me about just 15 minutes. Now it's time to enjoy my latte. It's still pretty warm. And now I'm going to use the rest of the white space to sketch the view in front of me. I'm not holding my camera in front of me for very long because there's a lot of other people's faces in it, and I want to respect their privacy. So you can just look at the little reference photo on the upper corner to see what I'm doing. So now I'm beginning with this man with mustache in the foreground. He's looking down. I'm just on his phone. So I just started with his face and his shoulder, left and right, and then just adding the bit of very simple shapes that I see on his sweater, and his cup of coffee right there by his side, and his hand swiping on his phone. Again, when we're sketching people, we don't have to capture a photo likeness. Just keep the head shape very simple. The chin part should be a bit pointy. And now I'm drawing the hair of the lady sitting behind him. Just like the shape of the hair. The top of the head is smaller than the bottom of the hair. And now I'm starting to draw the front door of the cafe in very simple rectangular shapes. Tall rectangles and long rectangles, and the inner frame of the window pieces. Yeah, just keep it really simple, just like looking at building blocks. Ignore all other details, and now just focusing on the large shapes. This process is very much like building a house or any kind of architecture. We start with the largest frames and shapes rather than going into a tiny detail first. So right now I'm just laying out the interior structure. So here, this is one side, and this other side is going upwards. So this is another side of the cafe's interior. So I got the pole and the beam. Underneath the beam, I have a little circular lamp. And now I'm actually moving on to the middle part of this sketch, just adding this man sitting or trying to standing up, and his friend or family member beside him here, an old lady wearing glasses, and there's another lady, so I can only see her back view and her upper body. Her lower body is kind of like squatting on the high chair. Yeah, so this kind of squatting position sitting on the high chair is a little tricky to sketch. And drawing the table in front of her. Okay, so now comes the a little bit complex part, but we can always calm down and just tell ourselves we don't have to draw every single detail that's there. As you can see, there are lots of overlappings of chairs underneath the table, and just draw as many as you can see, as you can feel. And now I'm just drawing these tabletop objects and adding this lady on the next table, starting with her hair shape, her face, and very simple with the eyes, nose, and lips. And her body gesture, I try to capture it. And this other lady's side view, you can barely see her face. Just the shape of her hair, and just color it in with solid black because they're Asians and they're tabletop stuff. Keep adding another table. Yeah, and again, there are lots of, overlappings of tabletops too. And another high chair, pretty close to me in the foreground, as you can see. And these chairs can be in different sizes because they're in different field of depths in this interior space. And then we want to capture their different sizes to show a sense of 3 dimension and depths. And now I'm keep adding on another man side view. In between the two tables, there's another table. There's 2 men sitting there. And finishing the pole in the middle and adding some more lights on the beam. See another line behind the lights following the direction of the perspective that I sense. We don't need to know where the vanishing point is, just kind of roughly feel the direction and get it on there. Now I'm adding this man pretty close to the foreground, starting with his hat and the shape of his face, his ear, his shirt, and his arms coming out from his shirt. I think he was trying to take out his laptop, finishing the table in front of him, and there's actually another chair right beside him. So all about connecting different objects, comparing their distances, sizes, and relationships. Yeah, just another high chair. Finishing the wall over there on the very right hand side. And there is another man sitting and looking down, starting with his face and a little bit of his hair and his shirt. Just a little bit of his arm showing. Okay, so now I am moving on to the next stage of my drawing process. Pretty much like drawing the negative spaces behind these people. So in between these two poles, I have these flower pots near the barista's workspace, pretty high on the shelf. And this area is the counter. Very abstract because it's very far away. It's very hard to tell exactly what those things are. Just follow the lines that I sense. And now I'm just drawing this garbage can by the door and finishing the door frames, the carpet in the front. Now I'm drawing this tree, which is pretty obvious and aesthetic, that I see right outside the door. Starting with the tree trunk and then adding the branches and just a few twigs. And I also drew the little bush on the bottom too with a little bit of texture to show the little leaves. Taking a little break to finish my coffee before it gets too cold. And moving on to the very last stage of the drawing process. I'm now drawing this the texture of the bricks of the building outside the window. And adding some more plants on the higher shelf at the barista's workspace. And underneath the table we need to draw those people's legs, right? From the common sense, don't forget about that. So now I'm just finishing the legs of the tables and adding these men's legs and shoes, which looks pretty short because they're bending. And that's why it looks pretty short. They're sitting on the high chairs. And yeah, different kinds of legs, human legs and chair legs, table legs. Lots of vertical lines. And there's another chair thing over here. And just finishing this lady's leg and her shoes too. Coloring with black ink just to add more accentuation. And that's it for the line work. I think I captured the essence. Now I'm writing down the name of the cafe, Crema Cafe, and the time. So it took me about 35 to 40 minutes for me to draw the line work. Actually, for a very complex urban scenery like this, actually we spend a lot of time and effort working on the line work. The line work is actually the most important part of the sketching process. And yeah. And the color just comes easy once we get the line works done. Now I'm ready to paint watercolors. So the lighting actually around me is not that stable. As you can see, it keeps flashing yellow to white. There's a little lamp very close to me. And now I'm just wetting pretty much the whole surface with clear water and adding the first layer of color, getting the atmosphere of the cafe in with this warm yellow, the mix of lemon yellow and a little bit of medium yellow here and there for the walls and for the poles, around the ceilings too. And it's pretty watery. And same for the ground, because the light comes from mostly overhead, so the ground part of the cafe or pretty much any interior is pretty bright. And some orange yellow for the tables, those wooden tables. Blending on some orange for some parts with pretty vibrant lights. For these lamps, orange yellow. And the color of the tabletops are kind of like a dark gray color. And again, I mix my own gray with ultramarine blue and pink purple. Just laying this color very lightly on there and loosely, leaving a tiny streak of white highlight around the edge. And for the concrete floor, I'm using the same color. There are a lot of shade underneath the tables, obviously, from the table itself and from those people's body shadows. Again, this is pretty much like wet on wet. I don't see very solid shadow shapes, just these, very loosely. Adding a bit of shade using the same color on parts of the walls, just to give those walls some more 3 dimensions too. Adding some more warm yellow-orange here and there. And just mixing in some more purple and blue together to intensify the shade underneath the tables. Also right now I'm getting a really nice balance of warm and cold colors in, because when we are painting, it's very important to get a good balance of both warm and cold colors in the image, not just warm colors and not just cold colors. A balance really creates a sense of contrast and intensity and sensations for the landscapes and the things we paint. Also in between the beams, there's dark shade using a very simple color scheme. And this part is kind of like a warm orange come from the lighting. And for the table of this man too. And now I'm just using leftover gray to paint the building on the other side of the street. Outside the window, and the tree is being overlapped on top. Just keep it really simple for things in the far distance. There's no need to draw their details. Just get the color in. Just get the impression of the color in. That's good enough. And now I am adding in viridian green, mixing with a little bit of yellow ochre for the little bush right here. And now I'm finishing with the lady's legs because I forgot to draw them. It's okay just to make it up by painting. And mixing pink purple with blue to get it kind of this purplish gray for the jacket of the man. Dilute it a little bit for the jacket of the lady, and use blue for this old lady's shirt. A lot of people are wearing grays these days. And sometimes we can change the color of someone just to make our sketch more interesting. So for example, I just made this lady here in the middle. I think I turned her sweater into a pinkish purple color. because I think she was wearing something gray too, which is pretty dull. It's okay to have most people wearing grays, but for one or two of those people, it's a great idea to make their outfit a bit more vibrant than the others, just to make our sketches more lively. And painting this man's shirt too with leftover bluish gray and purplish grays, diluted with more or less water to change the tone. And painting their hair, lots of brown or burnt sienna. Mixing brown with green to paint the tree outside, which is just a silhouette. And for sceneries in the far distance, in this case, the tree and the building on the other side of the street, I just keep it really simple with just one layer of paint. It's okay to keep things in the distance very simple, which is one layer of paint. And I just added just one other layer for the shade of the bush. Keeping the background stuff very simple, it really helps the foreground things to stand out even better and not competing with the foreground elements. And now just adding these very simple colors for these people's shirts and sweaters, mixing my own gray by using my own recipe of mixing ultramarine blue, pink, purple, and radiant green together. Basically, you can use any kinds of blue and green and red or pink purple combination to mix your own grays or blacks. And just painting the shade of the door and window frames here in the back. And adding a layer of leftover gray for the wall close to the ceiling. And a little bit for the ceiling too. This is a very diluted gray using my own recipe of 3 colors. And adding a bit of shade here and there too. And leaving some parts bright because I want to show contrast and 3 dimension. Painting this guy's hat. And now I'm starting to paint the skin colors of these people's faces by mixing orange, yellow ochre, and tiny bit of red, and very much diluted. And for men, a lot of them have a brown tone, so just put on a little bit burnt sienna, very lightly. And now I am moving on to the last stage of painting. I need to add some more intense colors to give a bit more contrast for this image. It looks pretty good so far. Some sketchers might want to stop at this stage. For me, I feel like I want to add a little bit more contrast or more intense colors with less water and more paint pigment here and there, and a bit of final details using thin brush strokes. And it's just a personal choice. So you can choose to do one more layer, or you can just leave it as it is. And just painting these metallic chairs with leftover gray, and adding a more intense yellow-brown for these tables, wooden parts. A little bit of shade here and there, especially underneath the tables and chairs. And that's pretty much it. I'm gonna call it done. And here is the look of my finished sketch. It took me about 1 hour. I took a little 5-minute break after the line work, so yeah, about 1 hour 15 minutes or so. So overall, I spent a lot of energy, time, and effort on the line work. I think the line work took about 2/3 of the whole sketch process, and the painting part took around 1/3 of the time. So yeah, that's the look of it. Just keep it really simple, have fun with the drawing and painting process. And moving on, I took the bus to Vancouver. Here we are on Lionsgate Bridge, a really famous landmark of Vancouver. And I think here is the forest of Stanley Park. We are in downtown Vancouver now, and traffic is very slow in this part of the city. And this Colosseum style building is Vancouver Public library, Central Branch. And I've been here many times before the pandemic. And here's the inside, the atrium. Lots of windows and structures, and cafes, tea shops, gift shops. And there used to be a lot of tables and chairs and benches around here. Now there's no more. They removed it. So now it's very quiet now in this atrium. This is the top part, it's glass. And this is the inside of the library. Yeah, a lot of bookshelves and people reading by the big glass window. And now I'm going in. I'm gonna take a little break by sitting on a chair and maybe sketch something. So I did these 2 sketches in my Sunday sketchbook class last week, and right now I'm trying to fill the blank space above. It's very small and so it's a bit challenging. And I'm going to sketch the 2 girls sitting in front of me. And I'm going to sketch this Blends Cafe looking through the glass window. Yeah, and maybe some people walking by. I'm going to begin with the 2 girls in front of me, reading very intently. So the top of people's head is smaller compared to the lower part of the face. As you can see, the top of her head is a bit more pointy. And the middle of the face is the widest. And the chin is a little bit pointy again. Now drawing her eyebrows, her eyes looking down, and drawing a tiny bit of eyeball, just looking down, very calm facial expression, her nose and lips, just using very simple pen strokes. There's no need to draw like photorealistic. The point is to capture that person's facial expression and what is she's doing. So yeah, so I got her hand kind of trying to flip the pages, and her collar around her neck, using a lot of dark lines to accentuate that part with a lot of shade. And now I'm starting to draw her friend, almost a back view, starting with the hat and the hair on the back of the head, the ear, and the hoodie, and then the top of the chair. So while I was sketching them, I had to pretend that I am reading and writing in my notebook rather than just staring them for a very long time. So I'm kind of like, just pretending to read and write and just glancing up a tiny bit to look at them for about a second or 2, and then looking down to sketch again. Or sometimes I'm pretending I'm looking outside the window and looking at them from the side view. So yeah, so there's a lot of ways to pretend that you're not looking at those people that you're sketching. Or maybe you can just even wear a pair of sunglasses. So it's even harder for people to notice. Now I'm starting to draw the sign of the cafe on the other side of the atrium. It's called Blends, one of my favorite cafes when I was working as a preschool teacher. And now I'm drawing these 2 girls standing outside the cafe. Their body is looking a little bit chubby because I have a very small space. So when you're sketching people, you don't have to draw them in the super correct proportion of human anatomy. So yeah, just have fun. They can look a little cartoony and chubby. And keep drawing the exterior of the cafe. So all of these cafes and gift stores, they are located in each single little cubicles. And adding another lady passing by wearing a backpack. And keep adding some more vertical lines. And now I'm adding some inner details that I see, like the shelves in the cafe. Yeah, and keep the line work really simple, only capture the essence. Now I'm writing down the time and the little note. I'm writing about that the pizza shop is gone now. After the pandemic started, it's really sad because I really enjoyed the pizza there. And now I'm starting to add watercolors. Just wetted the area first with clear water and adding this warm medium yellow mixed with orange for the warm glow inside the cafe. Wet on wet, different kinds of yellows and oranges, just to make it more vibrant. So this is a very small sketch, and I want the central focus or the color to be inside the cafe. I want to preserve the warm yellow-orange. So now I am just adding very little bit of brown around it and adding a bit of blue for the shade and also for the neon light around the sign of the cafe. So using very limited colors when doing urban sketching or sketching a very complicated scenery, it really helps. We can actually capture the essence better by using limited numbers of colors and just painting in these girls' outfits with leftover blues and greens. A little bit of brush strokes to show the bricks on the ground. And that's pretty much it for the little scenery there. Now I'm starting to paint the two girls. This girl is wearing a really vibrant yellow, orange, red jacket and raw umber for her hair and for her friends too. Painting very loosely and just adding the leftover bluish gray for her hoodie and the hat too, leaving a little streak of highlight. Now painting the face with mix of yellow ochre and orange. Adding a little bit of red pink around the cheeks to give the face more life. Just painting the chair very quickly and their books with leftover gray. That's pretty much it. Now I want to add the shade color for the middle part of her jacket because it's in pretty intense shade created by her hand and the book in front of her. And that's pretty much it. That's the look of my finished art journal spread. So thank you so much for watching my video. If you like my video, please click like and leave me a comment below of how you feel and what you think. Subscribe to my channel for weekly updates. And here's the other sketch that I did earlier in the day in West Vancouver. So if you're interested in learning about urban sketching, you can sign up for my urban sketching classes. I'm going to be hosting 2 sessions in the month of April, and the sign up link is down in the description part of the video. Now it's time to go home. I will see you again very soon. Have a great weekend, everyone.